What's today? 15th. Awesome. Okay, let's get started. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Brooke. Obviously, I am not Pat. Pat is away in Costa Rica. I'm super jealous of him, and he asked me to run and lead our team call, and we have an awesome guest speaker today, so I'm really excited that you guys are joining us. Before we start, I have everybody muted and I'm recording, so I'm going to go through two shout out lists. We have Success Club, March Life Changers, and then we have Weak Leg Volume. I apologize in advance if I totally butcher your name. I'm going to do my best not to. Okay, so SC5 and above, we have Carrie Steelman-Schmidt at 5, Lori Sanderson at 5, Caroline Nathan at 6, Celine Bacardi at 6, Jennifer Cutlip at 6, Ashley Coyne at 6, Meredith Darling at 6, Chris Bachlet at 6, Terry Bachlet at 6, Ashley Feldyson at 8, Megan Smiley at 8, Jill Wagner at 8, Amy Reelman at 8, Kelley Marks at 8, and Patrick Reelman at 8. And Kylie Winay at 10, Ralph Schoner at 12, Beth McDonald at 12, myself, Brooke Reed at 12, and Cassandra Schmelzinger at 14. Good job, guys. And it is only what? It's literally halfway through the month, so we have an entire half of the month left to continue changing some serious lives. All right, and weak leg team volume. In the 300 club, we have Jeffrey Leese, Brittany Dimmick, Francesca Calhoun, Brittany Bain, Allison Squires, T. Streel, David Yuckel, Jennifer Powell, Elle Deal, Morgan Breckenbury, myself, Brooke Reed, Bridget Moore, Kelley Marks, George Davies, Beth Reelman, Maribeth Darling, and Madeline Benton. In the 500 club, we have Margaret Mackerer, Craig Schmidt, Brittany Oat, Carrie Steelman-Schmidt, Ryan Williams, Brittany Miller, Joshua Morgan, Nicoletta Sidowich, Amy Reelman in her second business center, Peter Reelman, and Beth McDonald. In the 1000 club, we have Lauren Kellum, Stacy Slade, Ashley Feldyson, Gage Ecker, Wade Kephart, Chris Bachlet, Joe Policino, Charles Wallace, Marie Sardelli, Shauna Valenta, Robert Rodriguez, Patrick Reelman in his third business center, Terry Bachlet, Caroline Nathan, and Alyssa Sardelli. The 300 club is Amy Morgan by herself. 5000 club, Amy Reelman, Patrick Reelman's second business center, Michelle Phillips, Andrea Wallace. And in the 10,000 club, oh my goodness, Beth Reelman and Patrick Reelman. Amazing. That's incredible. Awesome. Good job, guys. Okay, so now for the best part. Oh, are we all muted? Now for the best, let me just double check that we're all muted. Yep. Perfect. For the best part of our call, we have Meredith Kelley. Oh, can you guys still see me? Yeah, okay. We have Meredith Kelley. She's a fellow Bostonian. I'm from Boston too. It's pretty cool. She is a 6-star diamond, 2-time elite coach, an SC legend, and she's been a coach for about 3 years. And she is kind enough to talk to us today about the struggles we face behind the scenes. Is that correct? Does that sound about right?
Yes, I'm going to go a little bit rogue. I have a PowerPoint for our consistency and belief, which is what I usually talk on.
Okay.
But I'm going to talk a little bit about the struggles too.
Okay, perfect. Take it away.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, guys. So my name is Meredith, as Brooke said, and I'm in Wakefield, Massachusetts, so just north of the city, but I've been in Boston, like in this area now for about 12 years, which is kind of crazy. So if any of you are part of this area, if you're coming to the April 8th Super Saturday here in Framingham, say hi. I'm part of the New Market Council with Amy Reelman as well. And we have a really exciting event. So I'm super pumped, a little overwhelmed. None of us really know what we're doing, but you figured out
Autumn's going to be there. Autumn's going to be there?
Yeah, she's leading the workout.
That's amazing.
Amazing. So we are officially sold out at 1,000 people. So we're the largest event in the network right now, I guess, which is crazy. So anywho, that's a good piggyback or segue, I guess, into my topic here. And Pat and I have kind of been going back and forth. And I'll warn you guys, I get like really excited sometimes and I get totally off track. And I have a water bottle here because I'll probably start getting like foaming at the mouth because I start talking really fast. So I'm going to try to like slow it down for you guys. But Pat and I were talking because, so I've been in the business now for almost 3 years actively. And I'm going to back up the truck a little bit and tell you guys kind of my story, because I think it's important for you guys to know where I came from and like how this started, because I think a lot of the time from the outside, we see people's journey, especially on social media. We have a tendency to share the, you know, the highlights and the fun stuff, and you kind of see someone's road to success like this. But it's definitely weaved and ebbed and flowed for me. And it really took about 2 years for me to even get on the track to knowing what the heck I was doing, or even giving this a shot from a personal perspective, let alone business. So I signed up as a coach in June of 2012, and I'm going to try to give you guys kind of the condensed version of this because it can be really long. But I signed up as a coach in June of 2012 because I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But my upline is Elizabeth Harkey, who was Elizabeth Gemmell at the time, and some of you may be familiar with her. She's a pretty heavy hitter here in New England and also in the network as a whole. But she's now a superstar diamond, and at the time she was a brand new coach. And I had worked with her at Bacardi doing liquor sales and promotions before her Beachbody life. And I knew her as Elizabeth Gemmell, and she was always an awesome person, but I knew her in this funk that she always talks about. So she had sent an email to my sponsor, Nicole, and I, because we all work together. And she said, "Hey guys, I'm doing this new thing with Beachbody. I'm drinking this shake. It's making me feel amazing. And I've started to make some money by sharing it with people. You know, would you guys be interested in the opportunity to learn more about it?" Blah, blah, blah. So kind of that cold invite, but the email was like this long. So like when like paragraphs. So I always joke about that, where you can say the wrong thing to the right person and they'll still eventually sign up, or vice versa. So she did the word vomit thing, but we were friends with her. So we talked to her about it, and it sounded sketchy to me. Honestly, I was like, okay, this is a scam. You go do this little thing. That's fine. And I'm all set. But a couple months later, I saw her getting results and obviously feeling good. And I think she had even quit her corporate job at that point. So I was like, holy crap, like, I guess this is kind of legit, but I don't really need the whole business thing. I just want to get in shape and stuff. So then I started to see her earning more and more money. And I was like, oh, so all I got to do is sign up and drink the shake, and I'm going to have abs, and I'm going to be rich like overnight. Like, that's how this works, right? So that's what I did. And I emailed like everyone I knew, like, hey, you want to buy Shakeology and want to sign up to be a coach, and you're going to make all this money. And I did everything wrong. And of course got crickets. Like, I think my mom signed up because she would sign up if I was selling like dog poop in a bag. She'd be like, that makes you happy, honey. Like, sure. So yeah, so she signed up, and that was really it. Like, other than that, I think I had like maybe one person try Shakeology, but I did Insanity for about 10 days and I hated every bit of it. And at the time I was in the liquor industry, super out of shape, had gained a bunch of weight from that lifestyle. And it didn't matter how sweaty I was during that 55 minutes, I wasn't seeing results because I wasn't doing any of the other lifestyle changes that you need to do to really start to see the results. So anyways, I got through like those 10 to 14 days. I don't even remember. I just remember it was miserable. And I chalked it up as a scam. I was like, I haven't lost any weight. I haven't made any money. Like, this sucks. I'm over it. And I pretty much gave up at that point. I threw in the towel. I didn't cancel, but I put my shakes on hold for like 9 months, and was like, this is before they had the 90-day limit. But I was like, yeah, I'll see you next year, Beachbody. Like, so I really wasn't into it, but I took a back seat, sort of watching Liz, following her journey. And I actually got kind of resentful of her because I was just like, how is she like living this life? And I couldn't even make it past day 10. So I was watching, kind of envying, but also kind of, I was a little bit of a hater, I'll be honest. And she knows that I like unfollowed her, and I was just like, ugh, like, I don't want to hear about it. I'm going to continue with my life and get this big corporate job. And I ended up actually getting a job at Oracle, which I thought was kind of like my dream job. And now I laugh at myself when I think about that, because sitting in a cubicle selling database licenses is so far from what I would say is my dream job. But what I was looking at was the annual income. I was going to be making good money, and I was going to have an expense account and be traveling and doing all that stuff that looked good on paper by society standards. And I thought, okay, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder and become a regional manager and eventually have people reporting to me, and I'm going to take over this whole company. Like, that's sort of what I had in my vision, but it was going to take me like 40 something years to even maybe get there. I don't even know. So again, I told you guys it's going to be this shortened version, but really, there's no way to shorten all of this because it was quite a bumpy journey. So I got that job, And I realized that all the funk that I had experienced when I originally got into Beachbody was still there. I still felt like crap. I was still overweight and out of shape. I still had really bad habits with eating and drinking and just not good. So I wasn't taking care of myself. And I realized that it didn't matter how much money I was making or the job title behind my name or what kind of credibility society was giving me. Like, I had to start with myself. So July 7th of 2014, I finally reached back out to Liz and said, okay, like, I think I want to do this. I don't want anything to do with the business. I just need to like get my shakes going again. Can you help me with that? So I did that, and I committed to 100 days. I told myself for 100 days, I'm going to document my journey on social media. It's going to scare the crap out of me because, you guys, I was not a social media person prior to this. And that's a big reason why I didn't do it in 2012 was because I thought, like, if I have to post on social media, then people are going to know I'm doing this and they're going to laugh at me and like, no, thank you. But then I realized that my desire to change, this sounds so cliche, but my desire to change was greater than my desire to stay where I was. And I knew that if I had to put myself out there so people would laugh at me or like call me out on my 100 days of healthy, then I couldn't go out and like slam 16 shots on a Friday night like I had done previously. They're going to be like, wait a second, like 100 days of healthy and now you're out here chugging tequila. Like, that doesn't add up. So I knew I kind of had to like call myself out on my own BS and put myself out there if I really wanted to make a change, and I had to make it public. So I knew it scared me, but it was something I was willing to try because I was really kind of at a loss for what else to do. So I did a whole 100 days. I posted every day one thing that was like healthy or happy or something pertaining to health and happiness. And over the course of that 100 days, I actually, and this isn't like a humble brag, you guys, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. All I knew is I was signed up as a coach for a discount. And if someone asked me about it, that's what I was going to tell them to do, because why wouldn't you want to save the extra money? So over that 100 days, I ended up actually getting to diamond rank. Didn't really know how, but I was like, okay, like sign up as a coach. And of course my mom was back into this. And I had put people under like my mom and my boyfriend because people told me like, yeah, do that. That's how you'll make some money. So I just did what my upline told me to do. And I started running challenge groups because I wanted to like have people that were doing this with me. So I started doing all those little things that a coach does, but I was just sort of like dipping my toe in. Like, I didn't really commit to it until I started to see some of the checks coming in, and I started to see people wanting to do this with me because of how excited I was and how enthusiastic I was over the opportunity. And, here I am about 2 years later, after finally making that decision and going all in. I quit my corporate job last June. So I left Oracle on June 30th of 2016, and I've been a full-time coach since. So I blew through kind of a bunch there, but I realize I'm going on and on about this. But really, like, on paper, that sounds like, okay, awesome. You signed up, you started running challenge groups, you started making money, then you left your corporate job, and now I'm a 2-time elite, blah, 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 whatever coach. And it looks good on paper, but you guys, since I left my corporate job in June, it has been I apologize if there's any kids listening, but it's been an absolute shitstorm. Like, I don't know, like, I've been like, what? Like, everyone told me that when I was like going to leave my job, that my business was going to explode and that like everything was going to be great and I was going to be traveling and all this stuff, like design your life. But I left that job and I think I got paralyzed, where all of a sudden I was like, what do I do now? Like, I kind of forgot that this is all the basics, day after day after day. You don't have to change anything as you get more tenured in this business. You have to, I mean, obviously there's certain things you have to change, but you have to stay diligent in those core, like phase 1 activities. And you hear that all the time, but it is so true. And I'm not going to lie, the 6 months after I left my job, it was basically, again, sorry if there's kids, but this is just me. It was basically like one shit sandwich handed to me one after another every single month. And this is, I'm going to try not to get emotional, but like health issues within my family. My mom had 3 surgeries that were unexpected to fix a botched surgery that happened earlier in the year. My father had a cardiac cath procedure on my 30th birthday, a heart attack a month later, and open heart surgery the week before Christmas. So like, it was like one like bitch slap after another of life just being like, oh, you're good, crash. So I was putting my business on the back burner at that time because I was just like emotionally rocked and having a really hard time being this happy, positive, like whatever person on social media, when behind the scenes, my life, it wasn't falling apart, but it was really, it was a roller coaster, and my family needed me. And because of this business, I was able to be there with them. So that's something where you can look at it and say, oh man, you had a chance to go full time and skyrocket your business. And instead you basically sat and forgot to do all the basic vital behaviors during that time. But I honestly think that everything happens for a reason. And I think I left my job at that time, and all of those things happened during that time when I could be with my family and be present. So you can look at it two different perspectives. But let me just see. I see something in the chat here. Oh, how did you find your tribe? Okay, so actually, I'm going to go into my notes now. This isn't really exactly the topic of the struggle, but I'm kind of giving you guys the cliff notes of that last 8 months for me, really, where I felt like I really lost track of things and everything felt kind of forced. And it's because I got away from those basic vital behaviors that I was doing to build my business in the first 2 years. So I want to talk to you guys about that, because that's where I'm at right now. From a personal perspective, I feel like I've kind of lost like my team. I feel like I'm starting over a little bit because I have a couple leaders that have sort of they've left the nest and they've started their own teams, which is awesome. And I know Pat talks about that a lot, that true leadership is when your leaders don't need you anymore. But that's an adjustment period. So if any of you are going through that, or if you have rising leaders on your team, then that's something to expect and know that this is going to happen. It's cyclical in your business, but it's up to you as a leader to constantly be going back to that phase one and saying, okay, where's my business now? Where do I want it to be? And what do I have to do to get myself there, versus just concentrating on the fact that you're not where you want it to be? Because right now I could look at my goals from last year and see where I wanted to be, by March of 2017, and I could get really down on myself. Or I could say, okay, not where I want it to be, but how do I make it so that next March I'm in a very different place? And that starts with now. It starts with taking action versus, looking back at everything or every missed opportunity. So I'm going to share these slides so I can stay on track, because I get a little bit like squirrel brain. So let me go through these. Okay, cool. Can you guys see these? Yeah? Okay, awesome. So belief and consistency. So guys, this is like grassroots stuff. Like I'm getting back to this. And if you guys were on Amy Rillman's call 2 months ago where I guest spoke, this is going to be some repeat stuff. But it's to show you really what I'm getting back to get through this struggle and to get through this time where I'm feeling like I've lost my footing and I'm like starting all over again. So I think that there's 3 different types of belief in this business. And the number one component to success in this business is belief. And if any of you are in that diamond dash that's going on right now, that Pat's running right now with Keith and Amy and Raina, Keith did an awesome video last week about the 4 levels of belief. And he says belief in yourself is like the 4th level, like the highest level of belief. But for me personally, where I started and where I'm at right now in this struggle, that's like the first thing that I got to restore, and the first thing that I needed to establish for myself back in 2014, because at that time when I was starting, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe, and it's not that I didn't believe in the products, but I didn't even believe in myself enough to start using the products, because I thought I can't finish Insanity. I already failed once at that. I can't finish these programs. It takes too much dedication or commitment or whatever I thought I didn't have. So I had to start with that belief in myself enough to get engaged in a program. And then when that started to happen, then I got the results. And then that led to talking to people about being coaches and signing up. And it sort of fell into place a little bit. So I think it really depends on where you're at in this and what you're coming into it for. And for me, it was a personal benefit, a personal journey that I was entering it with. So I think you need all 3 of these types to be successful. And where you start, if you're feeling like me, if you're like, man, I'm not sure where I'm going with this or why I even joined, start with yourself and do a program 100% and invest in yourself from a personal development perspective. And from there, I really think you start to develop belief in the products. That should be belief, not develop belief in products, and you start to share. Because there's no doubt out there that these products and programs work. Like, I think we all know that. But what is it? Like, why do we not give 100%? What is holding us back? And that's a personal thing, is my opinion. So I think when you can bring yourself to commit 100% and you share that authentically, that's when you start to believe in the opportunity, because you're just simply showing other people how to do that. And it's really, really simple. Now, belief in yourself. So these are just a couple questions that I think you can ask yourself, whether you were starting this journey as a brand new coach, just wanting to kind of find yourself, as cheesy as that sounds, but that's where I was at. Or if you're a coach who is tenured and you're hitting the 2-year wall, like I kind of feel like I am, wherever you are, I think you can always constantly reevaluate who you are and what you stand for. Like, what is your mission in this business? I think it was Danielle that asked the question about finding your tribe, and I'll go a little bit more into that. But I think it's really by becoming super self-aware of who you are and the person you're trying to attract. Because one of the mistakes I made in this business early on, and then I think it kind of happened a little bit again last year, is we try to talk to everyone, right? Like we're trying to help as many people as possible. Like that's what gets stuck in our head. But if you're trying to talk to everyone, you talk to no one. So you have to be so specific and so self-aware about who you are and the person that you want to help because they're in your shoes from pre-Beachbody, like whoever you were before Beachbody, that's who you're trying to help. So you have to have a personal mission statement that's going to be geared to that person in order to find your tribe. Because if you're talking in a general form, you're really going to start reaching random people. And that's when this business isn't as fun, because you're helping people that you can't necessarily relate to, or you're connecting with them and it kind of always seems like you're missing. And I feel like that happens more often than not because we want to appeal to everyone and we want to build our team, but this is a quality over quantity thing where you really have to be focusing on like who you want to attract and why you want to help them. So I think that really starts with making yourself a priority and making your happiness a priority. So like giving less F's about what everyone else thinks. I'm going to censor myself there. But I feel like a lot of the time we care so much about what everyone thinks that we'll edit our posts or we'll say something differently or we'll keep ourselves back from doing something that we truly want to do because we're worried about what everyone else is going to think. And when you're doing that, you're becoming less and less yourself and more like someone who blends in with the rest of the crowd. So I think getting really in tune with that, what makes you happy, and being a yes person, but also being a no person. Saying no to those things that don't actually make you happy and no to those things that don't actually put you in a place of highest potential with the people who are going to bring you up and the people who are going to raise you to, a higher level of wherever you want to be. And then do you know who you want to become? And this sort of piggybacks on what I just said is you need to surround yourself with people that are going to bring you up and people that you aspire to be. And I know this was said in that Diamond Dash too, and I thought it was a great quote, is, hustle until your idols become your peers. And a big way to do that is to surround yourself with the people who are maybe not necessarily idols. I don't really believe in that, but like people who you look up to and people who you admire. Seize the opportunity to be around them because those are probably the people that you want to sort of become more like, and determining what's holding you back. So I always ask my coaches this, like, what's the one thing, like if you could tackle this one thing, what is it that's holding you back from being successful in this business? And it's really hard for people to answer that question sometimes, but more often than not, it's fear-based. It's something like, oh, I'm afraid that if I do that, I'll fail. Or I'm afraid if I reach out to that person, she's not going to answer or he's not going to answer. It's a fear-based thing. But when you just do it and you go for it, you're going to eventually expand that comfort zone to the point where you're stepping out of it and you are fearless because you're doing whatever it takes to get to that level of what you want to become. And then what is your perception of yourself? And this is really, I think, the story that we're telling ourselves. So a lot of the time, we talk ourselves out of something before we've even tried it, number one. Number two, we're telling ourselves something that is so totally not true. And then number three, we're telling ourselves, a lot of the time I see people freak out because they're focusing on the wrong outcome, the wrong possible outcome. So they say, well, I'm not going to invite to this opportunity, or I'm not going to post this whatever post because, and they make up like a scenario or an outcome that doesn't even exist. And it's the worst possible outcome. And that scares us, right? But what if you create an outcome or a perception of yourself or a story that has an awesome ending and an awesome outcome? If you focus on that and you focus on the positivity and the gratitude that comes along with that, I really think that your ability and your potential is going to increase so much more rather than putting yourself in this box of what if failure. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Kind of? Okay. All right. So developing your vision. So I think this is kind of the next step in terms of getting yourself through that struggle or getting yourself through those first stages of establishing yourself as a new coach is developing a vision for yourself. So putting Beachbody and coaching aside, what do you want your life to look like a year from now? And this is what really, for me, changed the game when I went to Summit in 2015. It was my first summit. And I still hadn't really wrapped my head around the fact that this was a real thing. Like I saw Elizabeth Harkey and like her success, and I'd heard all these stories of these like, these magical coaching characters who had made these awesome lives, but I didn't really see it until I went to Summit and it became real. And all of a sudden I was like, man, like I like my job with Oracle and I make good money and stuff, but like these people are traveling with their families. Their freaking families are here. And like the Realmans are a great example where like the whole family's on board and they're killing it. Like, why not me? That's what I started to think. Like in 5 years from now, if I'm, married with kids, I want to be able to be home with my husband or with my kids, or be able to travel and see my family when I needed to see them. So I started to develop this vision beyond just coaching and like, I want to be a top whatever coach. Like that's not part of my vision. Like, yes, it's on my vision board, but what my life actually looked like was what started to excite me. So kind of looking at where you are now and saying, am I doing the things now that are going to get me to that vision? And if I don't have a vision yet, if I keep doing what I'm doing, is that going to lead me somewhere that I'm excited about? And that was a question that hit home for me when I started to realize, like, okay, if I'm going to stay in my job with Oracle and I keep hitting my number every year and keeps getting raised every year, but if I keep performing well, what does that get me? It gets me more money, yes, but it also gets me more work. It will potentially get me a promotion to my boss's job that I don't want. This is the guy who spends like 80% of his time away from his family. So I started to realize that the trajectory I was on was not one that I wanted to be.
How about some goldfish?
Oh, sorry, guys. Was not.
Oh, yeah.
Hear me? Jen, I can see you. Can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, cool. So looking at that and saying, okay, if I continue doing this, am I going to end in a place that I am excited about? And the answer for me was no. Like, what am I working for? I don't want my boss's job. I don't want a life where I'm away from my kids. And this is my vision, you guys. Like, I don't want you guys to feel like I'm telling you what your vision needs to be, but I want you to find what that is for you and start working toward it. But also, and this was a humbling thing for me to ask myself too, is that if money weren't an object, and I know that sounds like very like fluffy unicorns and butterflies, but like if you didn't have to worry about money, what would you do with your days? What would it look like? What time would you wake up? Like, what would you do before bed or on the weekends? Like, what would you do with your time? And I think we all get really closed off into this vision of go to work, come home, eat dinner, go to bed, get up, do it all over again. And we all live for Friday. We all live for our weekends or our PTO that is predetermined by corporate world. And again, I'm not anti-corporate, but I think that I'm saying this as someone who closed myself off from that possibility for so long because it just didn't seem to like jive with what I had always set out to do. So whatever your life looks like, if you want to do a corporate job until you retire, like I want you to at least do something that makes you excited, okay? And create a vision board. And that's something that once I started to create a vision board, it really changed the game because it's in front of me. I look at it every single day. And I will admit, I have not updated mine yet. And I think that's another big reason why I've been in the struggle is because I don't know what I'm working for. A big, big goal of mine was to leave my corporate job, and I did it much earlier than I thought I was going to. So that's checked off. And now it's like, okay, well, what the heck am I working for? So just actually this week, my fiance and I decided that like by October of this year, we are buying a house or a condo or something. And now I'm excited again. I'm like, okay, we got something to work for. So give yourself a vision, give yourself a timeline to work for something. Because if you're not, it's going to be really hard to get up and get through that struggle every single day when you don't really know what you're in it for. And then believing before seeing. And this is really important, I think, for new coaches especially. And I say new, meaning like 1 to 2 years in. Because I think that this business, if you're not giving it at least a year, then you're not giving yourself any credit or the business, really. I think you have to do it for a full year working to really start to see some fruits of your labor. But really the belief is what's so huge in this. And the proof is out there. Like we all know that the products work. We see people who have made money that have been in the business for, a year or 7 years, doesn't really matter, tenure. We've seen those awesome success stories. So it is possible. But the question isn't whether or not it's possible. It's whether or not you're willing to withstand the journey and do you have the discipline it takes? Because it's going to be a lot of sacrifices and a lot of time, a lot of rejection. And you are going to have those weeks and those months like I'm in right now where you're going like, man, like this just is not going how I had envisioned. But I know in my heart, I'm never going to walk away from this. Like, I know that my belief in myself and in this opportunity is stronger than that. So you have to get up and keep doing and practice those daily disciplines, knowing that it's going to carry you to where you want to go. And I'm going to talk, I have some slides later in this, you guys that are on like doing this with a full-time job, because I know that that's part of the struggle that a lot of people face. And I was in it for 2 years working full-time, so I get it. But it really isn't a game of skill. It's a game of belief, integrity, and patience. And I don't know how many of you were at Summit last year, but that's one of the big things that hit home for me with Gary Vee, was when he said, it doesn't, like, you guys, it's not a matter of the fact that you aren't working hard enough. Like, there's so many of you out there busting your butts every single day, every single month. And maybe you're not hitting Success Club, or, you know, you're falling short of those goals, but it's not that you're not working hard enough. It's just that you haven't been doing it long enough. You don't have the patience to see it through, because not everyone's success looks the same. You know, for me, it took me 2 years to finally figure out that I actually wanted to even dip my toe in, and then another 8 months to figure out that I really wanted to, like, maybe do this. And then 2 years, and I'm going to go through my timeline here, but it took a lot of time. It takes some people a year to even make their first paycheck. So do not compare yourself to someone else's success. That is the biggest killer of joy in this business, is when you compare yourself to other people. So put your blinders on, be patient, and know that if you're doing the right work, it's going to pay off. But if you feel like you're working your butt off and you're not making, you know, any progress, I do encourage you to reach out to your upline, talk to Pat, and be coachable. And don't lie to yourselves. That's the other thing. I'm going to be transparent here. I took basically the months of November and December, when shit was just hitting the fan in my life, I basically took them off. I was posting, but I wasn't connecting with people the way I was prior to that. And a lot of that was due to the fact that, like, in my heart, I wasn't feeling myself. I was distracted and just overwhelmed, and I was focused on closing in elite, and like my brain was everywhere but the basic behaviors, and I'm paying for it now. So make sure that you're buckling down and always getting back to those behaviors and facing the facts of whether or not you're doing the work. And then this last little point, I always have to put this in here. I've kind of been saying this, but like, for the first 2 years, I really believe this job is a labor of love. You are going to be putting in a lot of hours and a lot of time with sometimes not a lot of return. And that's just the fact of it. And I have a lot of girls on my team whose husbands or significant others are accountants or finance guys. And they're like calculating their hourly wages. And they're like, you're making approximately 7 cents an hour. And like telling them that, I'm like, shut up. Like, this is not a standard industry. You know, that's just something you have to go into it knowing that the first 2 years, I kind of think of it as like a grad school degree or a college degree, where you're going to work your butt off for, you know, 1 to 4 years. And it's going to sometimes feel like you're doing it and you're actually like maybe not paying to do it, but you're not making much in return. But if you can do that and keep that consistency and that belief in check, it is going to pay off tenfold. But you have to believe. And I honestly believe that with that, it weeds out the people who are just in here for the money and are just in it to trying to sell. Because if you actually care about making an impact, you're going to be successful, number one. Number two, it's just going to be, I think we have a really high quality or high caliber of people in this company, and that's why. So building relationships, being present and engaging. So everyone who's on this call, you know, props to you guys, and everyone who's listening to the recording because you couldn't be here live. That's awesome. So be plugged in, get to events like Super Saturday and Summit, and give yourself that place of highest potential that we always talk about. You know, if you can't look through, I don't know if you guys have a reality checkpoint list, but I know it kind of circulates through circulate through the network, but like this, I'll actually share it with you guys. Brooke, I'll send it to you after this call, but it's a checkpoint that I gave to my team and said, if you're not doing all of these things, then you do not have a reason to complain that you aren't where you want to be. So go down the list, do these things, check yourself, and, you know, be real. Are you doing these things? And if not, then there's your answer. Simple. Okay, the secret sauce. I'm going to go into kind of like what I did while working the business full time for 2 years, because this is something I talked about with Pat, where I said, I feel like I was better at this business when I was working another job. And honestly, I think it's because I was focused. Like, I knew I had limited time, where I left my job and I was like YOLOing for 6 months because I was like, I can do whatever I want. You know, like I didn't have to like get it done, where I had to go back into that corporate, like, here's your schedule, get it done, stop playing with the dog for 4 hours a day, like, you know, be focused. So Consistency. I tell my team post 1 to 2 times per day. As you get into this business and you're in it longer, or if you're someone who was on social media prior, you may be posting more frequently, but I always try to put myself into the eyes of my audience and the life of my audience, because again, you want to appeal to your people, your tribe. And for me, my tribe are people who work full time and probably can't be on Facebook all day long. So if they're seeing me on Facebook all day long, they're going to go automatically in their heads, well, I could never do that because I can't be on Facebook. So I put up a post usually in the morning, or I'll put it up in the afternoon or evening. So they go, oh, okay, she only posted 1 time or 2 times. They're seeing it when they're on, and it's something that's going to like strike a chord with them usually, or it's going to inspire them. So I don't usually post during the day unless it's something like exactly opposite of what my avatar is doing. So if my avatar is in a meeting hating their life, I'll post a picture of myself outside with like a sweet green salad and my puppy, because they'll be like, what the heck? Like, I want to be doing that. And I do that because that was me when I was in that job. I was like, man, I wish I could be doing that. So that could be a whole nother call. But consistency, posting quality 1 to 2 times per day, or whatever your avatar is going to feel is feasible for them. Enthusiasm. Be excited, you guys. Like when I was in this business the first 6 to 8 months, I was pumped because I felt like I had cracked the freaking code. For my whole life, I had felt like I was just like, had love handles, and you know, I was thick, and like, I just, I was like, I'm a big girl. I better date a guy that's like 300 pounds or else like, I'm going to look like I can bench press him. Like that was just like, I had accepted that. But when I finally, and this is not saying that strength is not awesome, love being strong, but you know, I always thought of myself as a bigger person, and I had just kind of like accepted that. Now, when I found these programs, all of a sudden I was like, holy crap, I dropped like 25 pounds. I feel strong. I feel like a badass. And I'm pumped. Like I have to share this with people, because I know there's other girls out there that are in the same situation, like feeling underconfident and insecure. And that excitement was what really drove my business, I think, for that first year. And for time, you know, you got to be in it for a minimum of a year, I think, and you got to be doing the work. Don't just like sit. I have people on my team that are like, well, I didn't quit yet. I'm like, yeah, but you haven't done anything. So like, show up, you know, do the work. And bonus ingredient, in my opinion, is honesty. So don't try to be someone you're not. Be authentic, be you, and share, you know, what's on your heart every single day, and you'll find those people. So then and now, and let me just check on time. I have a tendency to ramble, you guys. I don't want to go too long. But then and now, I just want to give you guys this perspective because I think it was really interesting, and I hope it's helpful for some of you. But 26 months ago, so this was like January of 2015, I had my TV for the whole month was 3,300. And my total downline was 35 coaches. And this is including like my whole downline, like not just my personally sponsored coaches. And I'm on the inside of a weak leg. So not a whole lot of action going on there in the 2 years I was dormant. So I came back, and I think I had 6 coaches, and I'd gotten it up to 35 by January. And I was pumped. Like I was my little diamond coach, and I had 35 people, but I remember being stuck at 35 for, I don't even know how long, probably at least 4 months. Like I would get to like 42 and then go back down to 33. And it was like, I stuck right around that time or that number for so long. But then just 6 months later, so 20 months ago, I was barely diamond coach going to Summit of 2015. My team was just getting started after about 10 months of me like sharing and kind of doing this thing. And I had about 50 coaches on my team, my personally sponsored team, mostly discount. And I had my first coach on the Success Club board. First coach. So guys, it took me 10 months to just get one personally sponsored coach to help one person. I remember being like, am I doing something wrong? But you keep going. You keep going anyways. And now, so this is just as of this month, I have 12 personally sponsored diamonds, lifetime diamonds, 17 in my downline. My TV for the month averages about 60,000. My team is over 300 coaches, my personally sponsored team, and I usually have about 40 to 50 coaches on the Success Club board for my team. So like that's huge, you guys, in 26 months, so just over 2 years. And again, I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm showing it to show you guys like that first 10 months or first year was rough. Like if by looking at this on paper, like I don't even know if I would, I'm surprised I didn't quit, but I knew I had the belief and the vision that like, if everyone else can do this, why not me? So the bottom line is just don't quit before the magic happens. Keep showing up, keep that vision alive, and your consistency and belief is what's going to carry you through those hard times. Now I have some tips, but I feel like that's going to be kind of long for me to go through this. So I want to open it up, I think, for questions instead. But ending with this quote is, when you help enough other people achieve their goals, you're going to achieve yours. And that's where I think for me personally, like when I was starting, I've said this a couple times now, I was just excited. Like I was excited to share this with other people because it was working. Like I was like there was no sales involved. It was just like, all right, if you want to try this out, like this is the best deal, sign up for the discount. I'm starting on this date. Do you want to do it with me? It was just genuine. I didn't even know what I was doing. It was when I started to overthink this and I started to look at elite points and start pressuring my coaches to hit certain ranks. That's when I started to struggle, because it was no longer about other people's goals. I started to kind of get consumed with my goals. So I think you really have to keep your goals front of mind, but make sure that you're always tapping into what everyone else, wants for themselves and why, helping them to develop that vision, and staying excited about it. And that's a hard thing sometimes. Like I know this business goes up and down, and I've had my months where I'm more enthused than others. And it's hard when you feel like your team is feeling down too. But the best thing you can do as a leader is lead from the front and do those behaviors to get yourself reinvigorated and to get yourself excited about it. Because what you need to tell your team, and this is what I'm going through right now, is guys, I'm going forward and I'm doing this with or without you. So you can either jump on my train and go to wherever I'm going, paint that vision and that destination for them, or not. But either way, I'm going, and the invite's out there. So I think that's if you're struggling, that's the best thing you can do, is to just keep going, finding that new fire, the new people to join your team that are going to be excited. Because a lot of the time, the new blood, I hate to call it that, but like the newbies on the team that are pumped, that can a lot of the time reinvigorate the people who've been sitting there feeling discouraged, because they see those people having success and they go, you know what, I can do this too. So with all that said, I hope I didn't talk too fast or throw too much at you. But I'd love to chat if you guys have questions.
No, that was amazing. I took so many notes, and I'm sure other people could say the same thing, but I feel like you're speaking to me.
Yeah, well, good. I'm so glad.
Like I just technically retired from my job. I've been in the coach for about 2 years. Like I just feel like you're speaking to me. So I love this call. Awesome. Thank you. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself. Or you can throw it in the chat and I can read it. That's fine too. Or if you have any, anything that really stuck out to you that you want to share. I definitely want that check yourself list.
Yes, I will share that with you, because
that sounds amazing.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have a coach, you said the summit was kind of like your turning point. If you have if you were talking to a coach and they were kind of on the fence of should I go to summit? It's kind of expensive. What would you say to them about how it's kind of changed your business?
Well, I'm kind of a numbers person. I just did my taxes today. This is relevant. So I will say the number one thing is it's an investment in your business. So if you have made any money in this business, you want to make sure that you're actually investing your money into things that are going to help you grow. So whether that's, personal development seminars, events, gifts for your team, all that kind of stuff. You want to have expenses that are actually helping you, so you're not paying it all back to the government. Number one. Number two, so I would, stress that with them. This is a business write-off for you. It's a chance for you to invest in yourself, but also to see the potential in this and to be surrounded by the company and the realness of it. And for me, it was just eye-opening, because I think we kind of get stuck in our little bubble a lot of the time. And this is no offense to my uplines team or anything, but that's all I was exposed to. I didn't see the big picture. And I really think just Summit is just a way for you to be exposed to the potential in so many different avenues, whether it's Beachbody Live certification, whether it's working out on stage with the trainers, or being part of the Million Club. There's so many things that I saw at that event that I walked away with oh my God, I want to do all these things, it was just fun. So that's what I would say to them, is just that they're passing up an opportunity that I think is going to help them to decide whether they're in or out. Because if you leave, I will say I had a couple coaches that went to Summit last year and they've quit since. So it's not going to be a turning point for everyone. But as far as I'm concerned, if it helps people to decide that it's not the right avenue for them, it's just as beneficial, because it's going to help them to, move on to whatever is their passion, and it's going to help you not investing your time in someone who's going to eventually quit anyways, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm one of those people that I get the ball rolling and it's going good. And then something like yesterday, I came down with, I don't even know what, but I almost didn't even take the call today because I'm just not feeling well still. But I just know myself and I don't know how to get that ball rolling again, especially since I'm just so low on finances.
Okay. So I think well, I'm sorry you're feeling that way, first of all, because I know how it feels to be like, oh, like you feel like you're rolling a snowball up the hill again. But I think the biggest thing is to tap into, and it sounds really cliche, but to tap into why you're doing this. Like what are you hoping to get out of it? Number one. Number two is looking where you were before Beachbody, like, and how far you've come. Even if it means that like you're actually cognizant of the fact that you don't feel well and you want to do something about it. You know, a lot of the time we let ourselves get into a funk and then for me, I would be, I just wouldn't do anything about it. I would just let it fester. But now I know if I get in a funk, I'm like, I got to do something to get out of it. And that is a big, largely in part because of Beachbody. They've taught me like, if you're in a funk, you don't have to stay there. Like freaking do something. So even if it's as much as finding out what you have gained from this and really trying to tap into that, but also sharing the struggle. And this is a fine line because I think you can share the struggle to a point that's inspiring, but you can also share it to a point where it gets like, okay, like it's almost like that person who shows up every Monday and they're like, oop, I'm off over the weekend again. And you're like, okay, every single weekend. But meeting people in the crap and showing them that you're not perfect and that this journey is just a straight line up, I think is really, really powerful too. So whatever you got to do to like remind yourself of why you started, where you came from, and giving yourself that vision of where you're going, I think is really helpful, and being relentless about that. Like sharing this and being so convinced that you're going to get there. Like, this is my vision. This is where I'm going. Watch me. And you have to be able to say that with confidence. And you're going to kind of almost laugh at yourself sometimes saying it because you're like, I sound ridiculous. Like I'm going to be in the Million Club in 2 years. Like what? Like like that's what I would want for my life. And I say it and I'm still not sure if I totally believe it. But the more you say it, it's like self-affirmations. So you got to pump yourself up and inspire yourself before you try to inspire other people. And then also just question, what are you doing for personal development? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I kind of do. Oops, sorry.
We can hear you, Jackie.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I just try and do a lot of research. I try to make sure that I know all I can know about Shakeology in the program for those who want to question me. Like, I've been trying to attend as many seminars and these video chats as much as possible. So, for an instance, I have a checklist of one person that came to mind. She's going to have her baby soon in April, and I plan on checking in with her, seeing if maybe she'd want to start the Shakeology program. And
okay, I'm going to cut you off. I want you to focus on yourself, like not everyone else, and researching and knowing all the facts, like getting a book that's going to help you wherever you feel you're struggling. So if right now your struggle is self-confidence or motivation, then getting something that's going to help you light that fire. So if it's like, I don't know, have you read You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero?
No.
Okay. I want you to get that book. That book was the one that like lit my fire from the very beginning, because it's like a no BS, like get your ish together. But it's funny though. It's funny, and it's it helps you to really start believing yourself, because right now, like from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you need to work on your own personal fire and momentum from like a mojo standpoint. I don't know if you guys use that word, but I do. But like your like excitement about life and stuff versus like knowing all the facts and trying to present that to other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I would start there and be like, okay, here's what I'm excited about, like getting yourself in line, starting a program that you're excited about, like going back to those basics. And I think that's going to help you feel like you're having personal momentum and sparks. And then you can start sharing that with others.
Okay.
Cool?
Yeah.
All right. All right, Meredith, I have a question, came to me from the chat. Any advice for new coaches? Got moved less than 6 months new. Any advice?
Less than 6 months in?
Yeah.
I would say, oh gosh, so that's kind of general. I would say the best advice I would have is to not hold yourself back in terms of like your vision. Like I want you to create crazy goals. Like look at your life and say, okay, what do I want to achieve if money wasn't an object? What would my days look like if I didn't have to go to work every day? Like, what would that be? What would that look like? And kind of get yourself thinking outside the box, but also being resilient. So if you have an off month, don't let it get you down. Don't focus on it. Focus on what you can do to be better. Because I think that as a brand new coach, we tend to, like, I see a lot of, I call them shooting stars, like coaches that sign up and they hit Success Club in their first like 3, 4, 5 months as a coach. And then they miss 1 month. And then they're like, oh, I suck. You know, and they're like, they get really down on themselves. And then they just like stop. Mm-hmm. But you have to, don't quit before the magic happens. You've got to keep going. So finding that reason to continue on, but also the last most important thing I would say too is to not compare yourself to others, because it's great to look to other people for inspiration. But when you try to become that person, it's not inspiring to anyone because you're not being yourself. So I think really taking that time to identify your own self awareness and your goals is going to be the most beneficial thing you can do.
Perfect. We can take like 1 or 2 more. I have another one in the chat. Do you have set business hours, and how many hours a day do you spend working the business?
That is a great question. Is it Tanisha? I don't know.
Yes.
So I do. Okay. So I'm someone who I like to be like regimented. I can actually show you guys. Let me see. I have files on my desktop, but let me. 1 sec. I want to show you my desktop because this is how I try to model myself. I just want to make sure I don't have a billion things open. Okay. So share screen. Okay. Are you guys seeing my calendar? Yeah. Okay. So this is like how I try to like structure my days so that most days I'm off by 5 p.m. So I do like my personal stuff from 6 to 9, then 9 o'clock is when I kind of plug into my business. And then I do all of that until about 5 p.m. And then Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I have my calls. But as you'll see, I have like date night scheduled in on Friday, so we can have that. And then Sundays is like my planning day, but each day sort of has a theme. So I can send that to you as well, Brooke. But really, I mean, my set hours, that's where I struggle. And that's what I've been struggling with right now because I've been all over the place. And I've been putting, I'll be honest, I think too much time into my team and not enough into my own business. Mm-hmm. Because I've been trying to drag people. I've been trying to relight their spark because I feel like they've been sort of losing it too. And the biggest piece of advice I can give to you if you're feeling that way is what I said earlier. Lead from the front. You cannot help. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. So the best thing you can do is show up in your own business, increase your own Success Club numbers and your number of conversations, and really getting yourself sort of moving from the front. And when I was working full-time, so actually, and I can send you my full-time, that slide I had made, but when I was working full-time, I can kind of take you through like a day in the life, so you can see what I would do. So in the morning, I usually would wake up around like 4:45-ish, and I'd bang out my workout right away. Like that's when I would get my workout in. I would listen to personal development when I was in the shower. So I would do a lot of like Audible stuff, or I would do the National Wake Up Call, team call recordings, that kind of stuff. I would always have something playing while I was getting showered and getting ready for the day. And then I would check in with my challenge group. So I'd post in my challenge group, comment on anything that went on, over that course of 24 hours. And then I would start work. So then it was like, okay, now I'm working from 8 a.m. to lunch. And then on lunch is usually when I would try to start some new conversations. So I try to start at least 3 new conversations each day, like 3 to 5. And then after work was all follow-ups. So that was like, answering the messages that I had started at lunch, and also follow-ups from previous day conversations, checking into my challenge groups, and posting on social media. So that was at the end of the day, I probably was putting in about 3 to 4 hours a day while I was working full-time minimum. And that was because I was not watching TV. I was going to bed at probably like 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So I was averaging probably 5 hours of sleep a night. Not exactly healthy. I drank a lot of E&E before Energize came out. But I was willing to do it. That was a sacrifice I was willing to make to get to where I am now. And what I'm realizing now is that I was hell bent on that goal. And that's what I haven't had for the last few months. I haven't had a goal that I'm like hell bent on. So I haven't been making those sacrifices. I've just been kind of like going through the motions. So, so you got to be relentless about, your work ethic and knowing where you stand, but also setting boundaries. I'm not telling you to sleep deprive yourself, because then you can't function. So making sure that you do set those boundaries for yourself too. Let's see. Between messages. So, Joe, actually, to answer, I didn't realize that was your question too, is telling them, like, I think that, so instead of looking at that as like a barrier, I will honestly, like, I would be honest with them and be like, hey girl, I have to run to a meeting right now, I'm going to be at work all day, but I'll get back to you tonight. Is that cool? I just want you to know I'm not ignoring you. So that way they know. And then they kind of, I do think that the right people will start to go, wait a second, she works a job too. Like, I can maybe do this, or just sending them a voice message real quick that's like, hey, hey man, like, your message is important to me. I want to make sure I'm giving you some solid information. So I'm about to run to work, but I will get back to you as soon as possible, either on my lunch break or later today. Is that cool with you? And that's a good way for you to kind of like insert your voice. So that way they hear you and they know you're like a real person, you have personality, but they also respect you for like hustling. And that's, I always say that to my team, like, the hustle is sexy, you guys. Like, if you are working a full-time job, talk about it. Be like, I'm doing this on the side. I'm working my full-time job. Like, I decided I didn't want to have another job that was like bartending or clocking into a shift. Like, I've done that. I'm not about that life. Like, I want to do this on my own terms. I want to pay off my student loan before I'm 60 years old. So like, when you are talking about that, other people are like, what? Like, I want to do that too. And that's where you start to, Danielle, you had asked about your tribe. Like, when you start talking about that and talking about the work and the effort and the sacrifice you're doing for this business, it's going to turn a lot of people off, but it's also going to turn a lot of people on, and the right people on. Like, they're going to be like, okay, yeah, like I see your grind, and I respect it, and I'm going to do it too. And I think that helps you to sort of set up the expectation too. So people aren't coming into this thinking it's all like rainbows and butterflies and free earned vacations, like, because that's cool, but it doesn't happen without the hustle.
All right, well, that's 5 o'clock. I don't want to keep you too long. We appreciate you being here.
You guys are so welcome.
That was amazing. I took so many notes. If you could definitely send me, I'll touch base with you.
I'll send it to you.
And then I'll post them in the Boom Fan for everybody to access. So in Pat fashion, we will say thank you in our Team Boom manner. So I'm going to mute everybody. And there we go. And then on the count of 3, we'll say thank you. And then on the count. All right. 1, 2, 3.
Boom. Thank you guys.
Thanks everybody. Thanks Meredith.
Boom.
Have an awesome day.
All right, bye.
What did she say? Say it.
Hello.